NPCs. Welcome back to another episode of Party XP. This is Andrew back again, filling in for Jeff. I'm with, our favorite guy, Lakan here.
Me, I'm here.
And today we're going to talk about Toys to Life. I know they've kind of been, I guess, on a downward trend lately, but we want to talk a little bit about, just, how big of a boom they were in, a short span of time.
Yeah, it's kind of, so I guess we're kind of the exception at this point now, right? Because we are still kind of within this weird subsection of gaming, right? We're still kind of involved,
right?
At least in regards to one of the things, right? Because there's I'm sure there's more, but the two that are still alive nowadays are the Beyblade Burst, which is I've seen them, but I don't really participate in Beyblade stuff. And then the big one that kind of everyone knows of is the Amiibos,
right? And that's kind of been the one to endure for the longest time.
I feel right, because that was so Amiibo started in 2014, right? And,
yeah, they came out with Smash Brothers for Wii U, and right?
It's got to be longer than that because there were Mario. There were Mario ones, regular Mario ones before that, I think.
No, I think the Smash Brothers ones were
they first?
They
really?
were before the Mario.
Oh
ones.
Shoot. But yeah, so those started in 2014. They're still going today. So that's what now? Almost 10 years? 9 years now.
Yeah, 9 years.
Yeah, and when I was doing a little bit of research before we came together for this episode, I'm seeing the other big one that I could think of was Skylanders.
Yeah,
and
Skylanders.
That one ran for 7 years only. That one was 2011 to not even. Sorry, that was 5 years. 2011 to 2016.
But Skylanders were so huge
they were
at
massive.
the time.
Yeah. So
were you working at GameStop at the time still?
I think seasonal, right? So I would come in every year or every other year just during the holidays and just kind of get the just see a little bit of the rush, right? And I would help out once or twice a week just because I was working on the job usually, or I was in school. I was finishing college, or I was still in college. I remember when I first started working GameStop, I was only seasonal only.
Well, I feel whenever we got shipment of those, they were out immediately back. When
yes,
they
because they had
out.
to be they had
right.
to they had to hit the floor, and then for the most part they wouldn't sit for more than a week.
Yeah,
at least the important figurines, right? The ones that everyone cared about.
I feel during Christmas time they were just all bought up though.
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, especially for my parents who just knew they needed Skylander stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, so. Quick before we really get into the thick of it. So Toys to Life is a video game feature. Technically, it's specifically for video games, right? That uses physical figurines or action figures to interact within a game. I'm just ripping this straight from the Wikipedia, people. And then a little bit of
little does he know, I wrote the Wikipedia for this.
So a little paraphrasing here. Currently, most of these toys use NFC, RFID, or image recognition data protocol to determine the figure's proximity and and what they do basically, or what character it is, what they do within a game, and so on and so forth. Basically, they're kind of like a plug and play ish kind of little variety changer to whatever game you're playing. Almost kind of like a.
So it's physical DLC.
Yeah, it's physical DLC. That's the easiest way to explain it, especially nowadays of how it is in regard to what it actually does interacting with games, or physical cheat code in some games. You know what I mean?
You get a special power, or you get a special item,
a health refill. I remember a lot of people were upset. Was it during the Metroid one? I think people were upset about.
Yeah, because
one of the Samuses just fills up your health, including all of your extra energy bars. Right? Yeah. So, but these things have been around actually for a while. The earliest pre NFC interactive game toys they date back to 1987. From what it looks like here, to a game that I have no idea what that thing's called, Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future. So it's a light gun game. So that's with the VHS tape, which is wild, and a spaceship toy that interacts with the TV through infrared, which is kind of cool. Kind of cool that they were trying to find ways to really make toys and video games interact, because they know that younger audience and kids like them, and so it's okay. Why not combine both, right?
Well, I mean, we were actually discussing. Oh, is Rob the robot? Is he Toys to Life?
Yeah, Rob,
or is he a peripheral? Or
yeah, again, I guess he kind of sits in the middle lane. Kind of is a little bit of both, right? Because Rob does in fact change the way that. Well, I think it's only 2 games.
Right, yeah, he did have
Jaromite and some other game where he actually interacts with, and basically plays as player 2 for Gyromite. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
Where he controls the pipes up and down. And the other game, I don't remember what he does in the other game. I think it's a bunch of colors. If I remember correctly, he stacks the little thing on different colors to like make them interact with in game. Same thing.
I remember I had Gyromite as a kid, and like, I think you needed Rob the robot, or you needed at least a second controller.
Yes,
so
you need a second player or a Rob. And for me,
So I always just kept trying to play the game by myself, and I'm like, oh, how come I can't ever get back? Because
get out of the first area because you can't.
You can't do it without.
Yeah, or you're playing with your feet at the with the second controller. But yeah, me and Gabe were playing it together. So like I was playing one, player 2. We just alternate levels. Like okay, here I play the first level. Now we switch controllers. Now I'm player 2 and you're player 1. But yeah, I guess Rob is kind of like right in the middle. Like kind of does a bit of both, right? It is a peripheral. It's a first party peripheral. That like doesn't interact with the game, but it's not exactly again like not in the modernized sense of like DLC or like a cheat. It's more just like you need them to be kind of like integrated into the game to actually play the game in the first place.
So he's more like the expansion pack for the N64.
I guess so, right? Yeah, yeah. Rob sits in a weird place, but yeah, I guess it's kind of like that. Yeah, again, I have, like a couple things here, like from like 1999, 2002, 2007. There's a couple other ones that are like, USB based or printer port based, which is like again kind of for PC stuff. That are like before NFC was kind of like the standard essentially, right, for these nowadays. But yeah, so I guess we're gonna get into it here. So like, we'll go back to the previous conversation, I guess. With Skylanders, again, is probably the biggest one, I think, in terms of like the one where like I couldn't get away from it. Because Amiibos, I wanted to be in it because I obviously I like Nintendo stuff. I follow Nintendo stuff,
right.
So I'm in it, and I understand there was a boom for that one too, but it's a little bit different.
Skylanders to me kind of like
was big because it was for kids, like or for
right,
aimed specifically at kids.
When I saw it, I was like, oh, could this be kind of like the next Pokemon thing? Because they had, Spyro was there and
a bunch of like original characters as well too.
Yeah, and then it was like a lot of original characters, and kids were eating this up.
Yeah, and like to the point where it felt like, oh yeah, this could dethrone like a Pokemon or at least at the very least Digimon. You know what I mean? In terms of like collectible toys and figurines that interact with another pre-existing or with some sort of base game essentially, right?
It's like a multimedia thing.
Yeah, because for this one we mentioned before, is like when we almost started the conversation was parents would just buy these regardless of what the figurine was. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of like us when we collect our Amiibos, we were kind of getting the ones we specifically want, and like for the most part, I think kids also want specific Nintendo characters. But for this one, it was like, no, did not matter. Just pick it up and we want it.
No, for the Amiibos, I was just picking them all up, I felt like.
I mean, early on, yeah, especially because, it was really, really big back then. But I'm saying for Skylanders, and again, because it is, I think because it is for kids, they're just like, no, just get as many as they can, really cool, interesting designs, and just make all the kids want them and bother their parents to go buy them for them, basically.
But to me, that's why Toys to Life it's kind of better than having just like an action figure. An action figure I could just interact with on the physical plane.
That's true.
The Skylanders. Oh, I could play with the Skylanders like in the car. As a kid, you could play with them in the car as your mom's driving you to the food store or whatever. But then then when you get home, you can now put Spyro in your game.
Absolutely true. And again, I'm sure that if you put them into the game, I remember for Skylanders a little bit because I did mess with it a little bit on one of the kiosks, right? Because I remember like they had like a demo of like
they had the demos there.
So I was like, okay, so like why like they had like the big he looked like an abominable snowman type of character but he smashed the ground and then he could roll, and I was like, I have no idea who this character is, but that's cool, and then like you can swap out to somebody else, and I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what this whole thing's about, and it's kind of interesting take on like video games instead of like having like all the characters like locked into the game already. You know what I mean? It's like, oh no, you can add more stuff to the game, essentially by having more characters in figurine form, basically. So I think it's a really, really cool idea. It's just to like. I think at a certain point, the market was like just oversaturated.
Yeah, I think they came out with too many at once.
Yeah, so like we mentioned Skylanders. There's another one that I remember that was also very big at the time, was I mean, no surprise, is the Disney one, the Disney Infinity.
Yeah.
So that, like I actually at a certain point, I assumed they were the same because I assumed that they like one bought the other or something. But because the style was also kind of similar, right? A little bit, I felt like, but they were Disney characters, so they were kind of cartoonified Disney characters. Yes, I remember seeing a lot of Obi-Wans, a lot of Anakins, because towards the end, that was when Disney already owned.
Disney had the Marvel property, the Star Wars. And like all their stuff.
Yeah, I remember seeing like Spider-Man's. I remember seeing like I don't remember what specifically what the Disney ones that I remember seeing because I remember I remember
So they had
I remember
Cars.
some Pixar stuff. Yeah, Cars. I remember that was a big thing. But like
they had the Toy Story guys. They had Elsa.
Oh yeah. Now I'm remembering more than now, but for me because I'm a dude and I'm doing superheroes. I remember visually seeing more of like the Lucas stuff, like the Star
You're
Wars
lying.
stuff.
You love the Disney princess.
I do, but like, but in terms of like what pops to mind, especially when I think of Disney Infinity, is like the Marvel character ones. Like I remember seeing the little cartoonified Spider-Man one.
Yeah, they had Captain America. They had all like the heroes.
Would they have had Spider-Man? No, they're still technically Sony. So yeah, but yeah, I remember I remember at least the Avengers ones. You know what I mean? I remember those ones very specifically because they had a cartoon I think as well too on Disney Channel, right? That was like the Marvel superhero cartoon thing. So like it kind of done in that style ish a little bit. And again, I remember kind of like the Star Wars ones, like again like Anakin and Obi-Wan, kind of done in like almost like the Clone Wars animated style a little bit esque, but like 3D.
Yeah, similar
kind of a cool thing. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool because again, it kind of brought me back to like that old time that I really used to enjoy the Star Wars stuff.
I thought the Infinity would be bigger and last longer than it did, just because
I would think so.
Disney had like all the properties,
all the money in the world.
Yeah,
right. But I do remember they also like they kind of expanded on the game themselves, right? You know, because there was like Disney Infinity, Disney Infinity, and then like Disney Infinity Marvel or whatever, you know what I mean? And then like they did like another one afterwards, which was like a reboot.
I think the problem was with like that game. The game wasn't like fleshed out.
Yeah, like I never knew anybody talking about how they played the game.
Right.
I remember people just only collecting the figurines, especially like adults, because this was more like okay, like these are Disney characters. You know what I mean? So it's like I saw more adults play.
Right. I think they thought they would be like collectible.
Yeah, like I definitely like, and then once the thing died, and a couple years later, I remember us going to like a couple retro shops. We just see bins of these things, just kind of just sitting there now, right?
Well, I was still at GameStop, and then we were taking in Toys to Life,
really
trade-ins
for a bit, even when it was already like discontinued.
Probably like around 14, 15, kind of like.
So right in the middle of it still then.
Yeah, but they're trending downward.
Yeah.
So we were taking like we had tons and tons and tons of Infinity and Skylanders that were coming in and being traded.
So the way I see it now is there's probably a super like lull right now that no one cares about them, with a couple standout figurines, right? Probably that are like really expensive, and then in like another 10 years these are gonna be like massive. You know what I mean? It's just gonna be like everything. Every one of these is gonna jump back up in terms of like price, and it's gonna be insane collectible stuff now. I think in like 5-10 years probably. That's my opinion.
Well, it is kind of like the retro market. So the kids, when they get into their 20s and have disposable income,
and nostalgia kicks in for them,
they might be like, "Well, I need, like what was it, like Hot Shot or whatever the heck is one of those Skylanders."
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, like I think it was a really cool idea. It's just that, like, again, I think a lot of times that they probably felt like tacked on. You know what I mean? A lot of times as well too. Or that like new ones would be too good and kind of like break the game for the previous version because like they have new abilities and stuff like that. That kind of just overpower the old ones. You know what I mean? I've also seen that as a complaint.
So I thought the Lego Dimensions, which was another one that came out around the same time, I thought that would be a little better because like people love building Legos anyway. Yeah,
absolutely. For that one, I never actually understood how exactly that one worked. I remember like they had a little bit of collaboration stuff. I remember that they did They had a Sonic one, right? I'm pretty sure they had a Sonic one.
I felt like they had a lot of good licenses. Like they had like Back to the Future,
the ones that like Disney and couldn't
like a lot of WB stuff.
Well, WB stuff. That which is not a surprise because Lego does a lot of a lot of collaboration with WB in general.
Well, that's what the movies are based off of, right?
Yeah, exactly. So these ones I know I know that they did like levels. Like I think certain ones unlocked like special levels for individual characters.
Well, they were kind of based off like the Lego games
ish. Okay, so they kind of like had like individual like sessions essentially, right, for each individual character that comes into it. Again, really cool. I just like I just don't I think just like after a certain while, like it's like the amount of work that would have to go into supporting a base game, collectibles, expansions, essentially that's gonna have to go into each individual.
Well, because some of the sets, like with the Lego stuff, were very expensive.
Yeah, and even more so than like just getting a smaller set for like like a similar size set without without Lego Dimensions functionality,
right,
is already kind of pricey. Like Legos in general, like are
stupid expensive for no reason.
And if I remember correctly, like I've heard this multiple times before, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's a meme at this point. But like Legos are some of like the best items in terms of retaining and holding their value. In terms of like the toy market, I think in general, actually, possibly. But yeah, like Lego stuff is super expensive, and it's like, okay, now you're gonna have to bump up the price even more so because you have to get a game, multiple sets for multiple characters to make your kid happy. You know what I mean? Like now there's a lot more going on here than just having just the individual toy sets for them to build, and that'll be it. That's the enjoyment of the actual set. Now it's like, okay, now you have to pay for a game. I'm not sure if there's a subscription for any of these games. I'm assuming you probably just like you just own the game, right?
To my knowledge,
right? I think Skylanders was just a game. I think they came up with expansions, but like for the most part, the expansions were like included in the figures themselves, from my understanding, right? But yeah, like I don't know. This one it was also again I was surprised didn't last longer. This one, so Lego Dimensions only lasted from 2015 to 2017.
And I thought because they had all the license backing that they would try and like push it more.
Yeah, I thought it would hold up a little bit longer. Again, like Disney, I'm not surprised that's the one I think like, oh, we just assumed this one's gonna last like long because Disney. They're just a super rich company. They can throw all the money they want at things. They have all the big memorable IPs for adults and for children, right? And it would last super long, but I don't know. I guess that one just kind of really died off. And there was actually another one that I remember. I recognize this one as well too, but I don't know if you remember this one, Pokemon Rumble U.
Yeah.
Yes, that one was like
the Amiibo precursor.
Yeah, yes. So it was that was in 2013 for the Wii U. Which did you have a Wii U?
I did have a Wii U.
Okay, so
I still have a Wii U.
So do I. I think you and me the only ones in the group who actually who bought one of these things.
I bought it when Mario Kart 8 came out.
Gotcha,
I bought with the pack in.
Gabe and I were day ones, I think, and I think everyone called us madmen for that because people were confused on what the Wii U even was in the first place.
I think that's more Nintendo's fault. It was poor marketing, and people thought it was just an add-on to the Wii. But.
Yeah. So this was the first game that actually utilized the built-in NFC reader on the Wii U gamepad. So, I think I have my gamepad over there. I think you can see behind the monitor, right?
Yes.
So on the gamepad, there's a little square or a little rectangle right on the bottom left of it. I want to say.
Bottom right.
Bottom right of it. So that's where you do that because I know on the Switch and on the 3DS you did it on like the joystick, right?
Yeah, the Switch you do it on the joystick.
Switch you do it on the joystick. I think the 3DS you needed a little thing for no.
So the new 3DS, you put it to the bottom screen.
Bottom screen, okay. And then in the old one, you had to get like a little plug-in thing for it, right?
Yeah, there was like a special reader.
Yeah. So, but yeah, for that one was like a Pokemon one. You did like small simplified battles essentially. I think for that one for Pokemon Rumble U. I remember thinking it was really cool. But you had to scan it. I forgot what the figures exactly were. Like, because this was technically pre-Amiibo. I don't remember what did they sell specifically? Did Nintendo specifically sell like, or Game Freak sell specific like Pokemon figurines or figures that had like a chip in there?
Yeah, there was.
They sold specific ones.
Yeah, there was a few Rumble U figures.
Hey, that's
a big gulp of water there.
Thank you. Because I remember seeing it on the game store, but I never like saw the figures. I guess
I never saw the figures physically. Also, I
Yeah.
saw like the game, and then I was like, I never played the game.
Yeah, like I just assumed this was like kind of like one of those like smaller, simpler games that probably wasn't for me anyway in the first place. Especially around this time, I had kind of like fallen off Pokemon. I know, like you and there's certain guys in the crew were still playing them at the time, but I was. At this
So I
point,
still always played the mainline games. I felt like there was too many spin-off Pokemon games that I never played. I never played like the Mystery Dungeon.
I heard
games.
those were like fun in their own right, but like also kind of weird.
I liked Pokemon Conquest.
I heard that's basically just like a tactics game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But like the Pokemon Rumble, I remember there was like a small mini game esque kind of thing on the DS as well too. It was like a puzzle game, right? It was like a match game.
Yeah.
And then like a cafe game that was on the phone.
Oh, Pokemon Troze, I think was on the DS.
Yeah. So like I remember these like little side spin-off games, but like this one I assumed it was a spin-off, and I wasn't gonna bother with it. So
especially if you're not bothering with the main line.
No, because I think for a while the last Pokemon game that I played was Diamond or Pearl.
It's a good one to stop at.
So that was like a while since I played another Pokemon, and then even then when I went back into it, 'cause 2013, what would that have been? Like Black and White? Was that too early? That's still too early.
That wasn't X and Y already, right?
Was it? Oh, Jesus Christ. I just feel old. Just crumbling. Yeah, but sorry, back into the whole Toys
Black and
thing.
White was 2010.
Okay, so would that have been the sequel?
I want to say it was X and Y. I want to say X and Y came out in 2012, 13. Yeah, 2013 was X and Y.
But yeah, so this was just in that phase of like I wasn't paying attention to Pokemon basically at all at that point. So maybe that's
you were still finishing up school in 2013, right?
I was finishing school, yeah. So I could have been really busy at the time too. That could be a thing. But again, I heard already fallen off Pokemon before that, and I was kind of just not interested in the.
I think Rumble U was also panned, so
was it?
I think that's why it didn't really have a long shelf life.
Okay, yeah, because it says here 2013, and that's it. So it clearly didn't get the support for it. And then there's a bunch here that I've never heard of any, like a bunch of these, like Sick Bricks or like Famps or UB Funkies. Telepods. Telepod's a good name. Let's see here. Angry Birds. And Angry Birds Go. That's cool. That was massive. That was a thing. Back in 2013, 2015. Hero Plug and Play. That's not. Oh wait, I do remember hearing Hero Plug and Play. I do remember these.
Angry Birds even got a movie, you know.
Yeah, I still haven't seen it. Don't care about it. I do remember Hero Plug and Plays. These were Jack specific, and I remember seeing these specifically because like I went to like an old like not like a Toys R Us because I think they were dead at this point. I want to say Toys R Us was gone at this point, but like a store that was kind of like Toys R Us. It was like specifically a game store. You know what I mean? That were selling figures like this. I was like, these are cool. Like not like cool, but I was like. It's cause those came out after Amiibos already came out, so I kind of knew what they were trying to do. But I remember those when they were DC. It was essentially DC's version of like the Disney Marvel ones. They had the DC superheroes, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the Power Rangers.
Do you remember when? I only remember this because I remember us selling them at GameStop. That like PlayStation had like little figurines that were like Amiibo shaped, but they didn't have any kind of functionality. They were just very small
figurines. Yeah,
they were like $10-$12.
Yeah, of their IPs basically.
Right, like they had the medieval guy and stuff like that.
Medieval. They had like Jack and Daxter.
Right.
I think they had Infamous guy. I should know his name. I like the Infamous games, but he's so forgettable. Yeah, like I remember those. They didn't have any functionality at all.
No, they were just figures.
Jesus Christ, Sony, what are you guys doing? Yeah, I don't remember those at all. I really don't.
I only remember them because Amiibos were big at the time, and then
they just thought, oh, we'll just sell figurines.
Yeah, we'll just sell PlayStation figurines.
Which is funny because if you think about it, they're selling them for $15 a pop. That's still more expensive with no functionality than Amiibos.
Right.
Because Amiibos are like 13, right? 13, $14 usually?
At the time.
At the
now
time,
they're like 16.
Yeah, 16 now, but like It's just wild thinking about selling just a toy just because they're like, hey, they're doing it, so we're gonna do it too. Because we're Sony, we're gonna do it in our own dumb way. And then the big one for us anyway, Amiibos. Like,
I want to say it's the big one in general.
Big one in general, because like,
I guess because Skylanders was like big, but now it's dead.
It's
now
dead.
Amiibo is like the last man standing, give or take.
For Skylanders, I could see like I could see that when there was definitely that turn for them where I think they were just oversaturated. They just had too many, and like, because I remember at GameStop there was a point where like, yeah, every week we get a shipment in and gone, right? And then like I remember like one.
When I started seeing them sit for like a long time, I
yeah,
was
like
oh,
2014, 2015. Again, I was working seasonal for the most part with them. And just in the holidays, again, everyone's spending money, right? But then these would sit, and I'm like, uh-oh.
So do you remember when they came out with the Donkey Kong and the Bowser Skylander?
What? No.
Oh.
They actually had a full-on Nintendo collab with them?
Yeah, there was a Donkey Kong and a Bowser Skylander.
And what console did Skylander play on?
The Wii U, I believe.
Was it only Wii U? Okay, so that makes a little more sense. 'Cause I was like, there's no way that they did this for like another console, right?
So, I remember like those sold out, but then that like Christmas, all the other Skylanders sat, and I was like, oh, I think it's over now.
Okay.
That was kind of the turning point for me.
Yeah. Because
I don't specifically remember the year, but I was like, oh.
Because if we're looking at that, that's again, Amiibos at that point have been out. Because if it's towards the end of their life, maybe like 2015, maybe 20. Because again, Amiibos came out 2014.
I think they also functioned as Amiibos, but don't quote me on that.
Okay, I won't. But that'd be cool. It'd be smart for them to do it that way, right? Because it's just an NFC chip, it's programming. But yeah, like. I just remember, like, yeah, one of the winters I would come in for, or one of the holiday sessions I would come in for. Holy shit, it looks sick, actually.
Yeah,
I would pay for that. What's the other one? Donkey Kong.
Yeah, because there was like 2 versions of Bowser, and like, yeah, say this one was black.
That's sick. That's actually really dope. Dark Bowser. That's pretty sick. Yeah, listeners, I learned something new today. Listeners, look up the Donkey Kong and Bowser Skylanders figurines.
Yeah, turbocharged and.
Oh, that's so sick!
Yeah.
These are actually so cool.
Yeah, because they looked cooler than the Donkey Kong Amiibo.
This is the Amiibo, yeah, which are pretty basic for the most part. They're kind of in the traditional like trophy pose you would see in like a Smash game. But yeah, like I think that one I remember. I think I remember seeing the downturn because again I would start seeing more and more than sitting, and then also. Like seeing some stores had bins of them, you know what I mean? Like just pre-owned bins. Because remember you said we used to buy them, right? I never dealt with the buying thing because I was never around long enough to have to deal with like buy-in sales for the most part. But I do remember seeing like occasional like like a used bin of like figures, and I'm like, which threw me off because I remember going to GameStop and just seeing like a plastic bin or just like tote of just like Skylanders toys, and I was like, what the fuck? And like, yeah, you're just seeing more and more of them kind of being like just pawned
so I feel
off,
like honestly with the Skylanders, their problem came with like they had like they had lines of characters they would make, but then
and new characters too for that
right
matter.
But then eventually they started just remaking characters. Oh, but this time it has a different gun, or like okay. Now it has a sword.
Gotcha.
So I felt like, oh, wow.
They were just retreading old...
Right, so it's like, oh, why am I going to buy this character with a sword when I have this character with a gun or something like that?
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. So they were just making lazy, dumb decisions for characters.
It's kind of like how Pops are now. It's like, oh, there's the regular version, and then there's the diamond version.
Yeah,
and then
there's the chrome. Here's a glow in the dark. Here's a chrome version. It's the same one, same mold. Okay, I get you. Yeah. So they were just like flooding at that point. They were like, we don't know what else to do. We're just gonna keep putting the same thing out and have
it's kind of like
minor variations.
What happened with Guitar Hero, where they're just like, oh well, here's another Guitar Hero, and here's another Guitar Hero. Oh, here's Rock Band.
Well, yeah, actually, I wanted to almost do a deep dive on that, just like on the oversaturation of those, and also how they segmented their own player base by releasing games of just different bands, of different fan bases. And it's like, just put them in the base game. You know what I mean? Like, I understand this is the age of like DLC, and they're trying to get everyone to buy like extra games, essentially, right? But it's just like you're segmenting your player base by band essentially and by music genre at this point. It's like it's just terrible for their player base.
I mean, I guess now that we're starting on that, I always wondered with the band-specific games, did Activision pay them or did they pay Activision? Because if like
Activision played them.
Okay,
because I remember seeing, if I remember correctly, I think Metallica or AC/DC made like an insane amount of money on one of them or something like that for licensing.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say if they were getting if they were getting paid by the band to release the game, I'm like, oh yeah, just go ahead.
No,
I would do that shit.
I think that's what it was. I think it's like an arms race of like, oh no, well we got these band now because this band doesn't like selling off their music,
right? Or like rock bands, like, well we got the Beatles.
Yeah, it's like okay, well we got AC/DC or so on and so forth. It's like we have Aerosmith now. It's like okay, well now we're fighting for now we're trying to get specific, more niche groups of people into this game kind of thing. You know what I mean? So they were trying to grab everybody, but in doing so, they were isolating everybody else. Because they're like, oh, what about my band? Well, my favorite band's not gonna get a Guitar Hero or a rock band, right? So I was like, okay, so what about me? Oh, your band just has a DLC song on. Just buy it on the shop. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well now I feel left out. I think that's kind of like what happened there. They were like weirdly trying to bring people in, but segmenting their own player base. I think it was just really, really just dumb decisions.
But we digress.
Sorry, get tangents, people. This is what you came for. For currently
the rock band conversation.
So currently for us right now, I think aside from Skylanders also being, and also Disney Infinity was also pretty big too as well. But again, I think that was more for adults were buying those because of nostalgia and kind of some more young adults / college kids is around our age basically looking
so
for
I felt
those,
like
right?
like I said before with the Disney stuff, I thought people were buying it up originally because they were like, oh, this is going to be very collectible, and then
yes,
then the bubble burst.
Yeah,
and I guess it wasn't really a big bubble anyway.
No, not from my understanding. I mean, because it was popular but not insane.
Well, it's not like when the Amiibos came out originally, you could find them that first week. Then I don't know if you remember. I remember seeing the articles of Nintendo's oh well, a lot of these have a limited production
yes,
run. I
was in the trenches with you, Gabe, and Zach and Demetrius.
Then they were gone.
Just gone.
Literally after that, article dropped.
Have fun trying to find a Sonic. Have fun trying to find a Falco, which is these are Nintendo characters. Well, not Sonic, but have fun trying to find Falco. The secondary Nintendo characters, because Foxes we could still find, Links we could still find, Zeldas, Marios, Luigi's.
Were you working when Amiibos originally came out at GameStop?
2014. I think I did. Yeah, I think I did a season, or not a season, but at least another holiday season.
Because I remember the GameStop I worked at, we had the whole first wave, except we didn't have a Marth, we didn't have any Wii Fit Trainer, we didn't have the Villager, the Holy Trinity as they were called in the circle.
Were they?
Because those were the three that were specifically mentioned. Oh, these aren't getting a rerun.
Oh, okay.
They eventually did get reruns, but
yeah, but after the hype. So Gabe was more into this than I was. I just wanted specific characters, But Gabe's, you've seen Gabe's collection,
right? And so that's what I thought originally. I was like, oh, I want to play as the Villager. I'll go get a Villager, and I'll
train my own Villager.
Right, and I ended up buying a Donkey Kong that night because I was like, Donkey Kong.
Yeah, Donkey Kong, why not? And then
next day I go to Toys R Us, I see them all on the shelf. I pick out a Villager, go home, and then then it got crazy.
Yeah, I remember. I think the first time I experienced it being crazy was after that first wave, because I think Gabe was on that first wave because he was also working at GameStop. So for him, he was in it. He could grab things a little bit easier because he was still there. He was an inside man at the time still. When Gabe wasn't working, I think Gabe had less than his hours. He was working a different full-time job, he was going back to school to become an EMT. That's what it was. So when he was doing that, he was no longer a GameStop guy. So we had to start asking for connects. You know what I mean? His old friends at GameStop, when they were still there anyway, I guess. So he would ask his previous coworkers, his old boss, hey, if you get one of these, hold one for me, please. I would appreciate it. Or let me know what we're getting. You know what I mean, kind of thing, right? At his usual shop, or we started doing the whole thing where you would call ahead. I call a different shop. I call Target. Like, hey, are you guys getting Yoshi? I think Yoshi's pretty standard, right? Or are you guys getting Jigglypuff? You know what I mean? Those when we started calling ahead for like Lucarios, Jigglypuffs. What else is another one?
So the second wave, I remember I really wanted Captain Falcon, and Little Mac, and I still at the time was able to just walk into Toys R Us the first day, and I saw one of each, and I picked them up.
Yeah.
Then when that third wave hit, I remember that being like the crazy time.
That was when everyone started having to line up.
That's when I had to go line up outside Toys R Us
at 6 a.m.
At like 2 a.m.
Before the ass crack of dawn.
Yeah, before the crack of dawn. And then 3 guys are already sitting in front of me, and then
lawn chairs.
Right, and I'm like,
piss bottle.
I'm like, well, fuck, I'm the fourth guy.
So hopefully they have at least 4 here.
Right. And then, the Toys R Us guy would we'd be there before the employees, and then the employee would walk out at 9 o'clock when they open at 10 and be like, well, we got 4 Meta Knight. No, Meta Knight wasn't exclusive. We have 4, Robins.
Lucario was, I think, was an exclusive for Toys R Us.
I think that's when it also got annoying, when they were making store exclusives.
Yeah.
And I think that was after the third
And
wave.
Unfortunately, I think that was a thing of the time. There was a lot of, because I remember a lot of video games were also doing exclusive stuff for if you buy from here, you get this skin and this thing and this whatever bullshit, this collectible. And then this physical collectible and this in-game collectible. And it's okay, cool. If you buy it from buy this game from GameStop, you buy this game from Best Buy, here's what you get instead. And it's fuck you. I don't want, just stop doing this. And yeah, I remember that was the time. So it must have been the third wave then. I guess that's when Gabe and I started having to do the hunting, proper hunting.
I remember GameStop had a bundle that was, do you remember doing Weapons Store in GameStop? Where you had to log onto the computer, and then you hit add to cart, and it would print out a sheet, and then you would pay for it in the store.
Yeah.
It was the stupidest thing ever.
Yeah, which is funny because nowadays they just have just hold it for me. I'm gonna be there today. You know what I mean? Every online retailer just has pick up in store. That's all it is now. It's just pick up in store.
But I remember GameStop did the bundle.
They made it a convoluted too.
The third wave, and it was okay, well, tell everyone that we're putting this up at 5, p.m. EST. And I was the first person online at GameStop. There was 25 people, and the system all across America crashed.
Whoa.
Because we had the 2 registers, and both were trying to log on. Demetrius, who was, the manager at that GameStop, was working on the computer in the back secretly to try and do it.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
The whole system crashed. And I was the only person to get the Weapons Store orders through.
Whoa. This is the madness that was happening around the Amiibo, the height of the Amiibo, craze, basically, right? Again, it's still running. That's the thing. It's the longest currently the longest running one now too.
Do you have any good Amiibo hunting
stories? I remember watching a dude try to take one out of a kid's hand at Target, and I remember the crowd ready to rip this dude apart because the kid started crying, and I'm like, wow, there is there's a shitty person here.
Which Amiibo was it? Are you?
It might have been Jigglypuff or some shit, or I don't know, something. It might have one of the ones that kids would probably recognize. Either a Pokemon one or not one of the Japanese game characters.
So not a Fire Emblem.
Not a Fire Emblem, not a Xeno character, not a Captain Falcon. So something that
now everybody recognizes Captain Falcon.
Yeah, this 3-year-old child. Yeah, I forgot what it was, but yeah, a kid, some fucking neckbeard just tried to fucking take this out of this kid's hand, basically, while the mom wasn't looking at a Target. And then it's funny because again, I see this one shitty person, and then the rest of the people saying, "What the fuck are you doing?" and ready to just jump this dude. I was like, okay, this is still good in the world. You made a kid cry, so fuck this guy up. That's good.
So when Rosalina came out,
oh, that was a big one. Yeah,
she was at Target, and I remember going there. So it was February. It was snowing already.
Oh, Jesus.
So it's snowing outside, and I'm waiting there. I'm probably the second person online.
I don't think I waited for that one.
And I remember,
I think Gabe did.
The next person who came up behind me was a guy, and then a couple minutes later, I guess his wife came with his kids. So there's this
family.
It's literally snowing out, and this guy has like his stroller out there with his like
his young children,
his two like 1-year-old kids,
just sitting in the
snow waiting for these amiibos.
That's a bad parent.
I know.
He needs.
And then we go into like the guy opens the doors for Target, and then somebody asks him, "Oh, we're here for the amiibos or whatever," and the guy has no idea what we're talking about. And so they're like lead us back to the electronics or whatever. Then like it's like, I don't think we got these things you're looking for. And then
well, did they actually have them or no?
They did not have them.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So everyone's like yelling at so
some poor kid just getting the fucking
everyone's
brunt
yelling
of this
at the kid who opened the door, and then we run back to the electronics. Everyone's yelling at the electronics guy. It's like, oh, we didn't get them. There's like it's obviously not their fault.
Yeah, it's just whatever they get sent, basically.
But like everyone's screaming at these people, and I'm like, oh, screaming's not gonna do anything. So I like get in my car, bust it to a different Target, and get like the last one.
Oh shit!
At the other Target.
That was Rosalina.
Yeah, that was Rosalina.
We have 3 of those now. I think Gabe like must have had a Connect or something, or because I remember he did wait. I think he also waited for that one because again that was around the time Gabe had more time.
But I just remember like that guy with his kids in the snow.
Like, wow, fuck you, dude. Like you should not be out here. you're a bad parent.
He's like, oh, like you're upsetting my kids, and I was like, those kids have no idea what's happening.
Those kids are upset because you're in the fucking cold,
right?
And for fucking 8 hours before the goddamn store opens. Fuck you. You're a piece of shit. Go fuck yourself. I would have. I'm not taking shit from a fucking terrible father. Fuck
right.
that.
And then I'm like, I'll just go into a different Target.
Yeah.
And then I ended up winning.
I think there was one. I want to say the Lucario one was because I think that was the same day as Jigglypuff. I want to say, or like because I remember the Pokemon.
I want to say he might have been Toys R Us and Jigglypuff was Target.
Yeah, that's what it is. I think because they were like blue and pink. Like so, I remember doing Jigglypuff at our Target, the one near us, and then going immediately to the Toys R Us in Woodbridge. Yeah, that one. So I went there, and which is funny because the Jigglypuff one was super chill. Like they had a decent number of them.
Jigglypuff was very chill.
They had tickets, so you're allowed to. They was like, here you go if you're in line.
By the 4th and 5th wave, they started handing out tickets, which was a godsend because I didn't, like as soon as I got the ticket.
Jigglypuff was relatively early still. I feel like, right?
No, I want to say she was a little later.
Okay, so that
I want to say like because the 3rd wave I want to say had Robin and Lucina. I could be. They were either the 3rd or the 4th, and then the next one.
Really, Robin and Lucina before Jigglypuff. That's kind of wild, actually. Now that I think about it.
And then I remember the other hard wave, or like the one that we really were searching for, was like that Ike DDD. Wave.
Oh yeah, Ike. So we have. I remember I wanted the Ike. Yeah, that's that.
Ike was one of your mains.
One of my mains. So I was like, I want this, and I remember me not having. I think Gabe had the luck with that one. I just got completely fucked over. I had no because I think when Ike came out, what year would have Ike have come out then? That would have been like was the 3rd wave, 4th wave? You said.
I wanted to say he was the 4th, but I could double check.
Yeah.
On that.
So I remember not having any luck on that one. I don't remember because now I'm trying to figure out if Gabe was gone for the Navy at this point. Because after a certain point, I had to take over the collection because Gabe was leaving for the Navy.
This says Ike was released in 2015.
So I don't think Gabe left yet at that point. I think Gabe was still here. Or maybe like on the verge of leaving. So that's why I didn't have Gabe, having on the free time to go and try and go for it. But I remember, I think one of our... I want to say one of the GameStop guys was able to get one and hold one for me, I want to say. Like who helped me out with it. So like, I was luckily able to get one of those, and then I was able to find another one down the line when we started hunting. I just saw random ass Ike just in one of the stores. I was like, oh shit, Ike, I'm gonna buy that because I want an extra one for myself. And then things started kind of getting a little bit more organized. But I think around the time it started getting organized, around that 4th, 5th wave or so, there was a little bit of like it. It was weird.
It was a little fatigue.
It was a little fatigue, but also still hype. You know what I mean? It was weird. Like it was kind of like.
So I think with like the sections of people, some people were tired of never getting them, so they quit.
Yeah.
And so then
cowards.
The other people
weak.
who were like resellers or the people who really wanted it, they were still super into it. So it's like, oh, there was still like a demand
there was
for
still
it.
insanely strong demand for them.
Right.
Um,
Especially because like Smash Brothers popularity
was still really, really because obviously Smash 4 was still the one at the time, right? Yeah, Smash 4.
the Wii U and the 3DS.
Yeah, so...
And then with these figures, it's like, you know...
And now there's a secondary market for them, too.
When are you ever going to see, like, a Little Mac figure?
Yeah, you're not... For
or like a Captain Falcon. Yeah, like, a lot of these characters are so obscure.
Ignored by Nintendo, basically.
Right.
Like, they're not gonna get another property for maybe another 10, 20 years.
Or ever.
Or ever. Like...
I'm looking at you, Earthbound.
Like, yeah, like Ness Lucas, you know what I mean? Like, we're not going to see those ever again.
Right.
Like,
so this is your only chance to
get a figure for if you're really, really involved in, like, you know, really into a property that has been essentially been ignored by the main company.
And then with Smash, it's, you know, we all have our mains, all our characters we like to be. So it is something cool to have to like, oh, these are my characters.
Yeah, exactly.
And then some people did like cool customs with them too. Like,
yeah,
I know some people painted it to do
too.
the you know, their color scheme and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was like a nice thing, a customizability thing here. But then like, you know, with another thing with was aside from just the Smash thing, there are again like we mentioned before with like Samus, right, with Metroid games where like again like in like when Breath of the Wild came out, I remember like the demand for a lot of like anything Zelda or Link related skyrocketed. Like all these old amiibos you used to be able to just find anywhere, and now they're pretty hard to find.
Yeah, original Link amiibo like was everywhere,
and then it became hard to find again for like a little bit because there's initially everyone bought all the amiibos, so there's a start, like, you know, there's like a drought in the beginning, but very short because they had made a lot of them. Right.
Then by the time the 5th wave came out, they released some of the original wave, like the Marios and the
in
Links.
A repackage.
Yeah.
And then like, but now it's like the Wolf, the Link Wolf amiibo was very like in demand because they only released with like the game, right?
Yeah. Then they started releasing individual series like Zelda specific amiibos, Metroid specific amiibos, so Mario specific amiibos.
And then like again like and those work for now across 3 consoles, right? The 3DS, well technically even 4. Technically, if you go the previous generations of the DS, 3DS, Wii U, and Switch, right, in 2017.
And I think that's why Amiibo has endured, because they do, you know, Skylanders.
Was
and
Wii
Lego,
U only,
and Lego Dimensions, you needed the specific game for.
Specific game and specific console
right.
For...
I could use the Mario Amiibo in, you know, 100 different games. Well, not 100. But, you know, I could use it in Mario Maker. I could use it in Smash Brothers. I can, you know... I could just get, like...
I think I can use, like, the 30th anniversary with, like, the Pixel one, or the 25th anniversary one, in, like, Odyssey. Like I'm pretty sure, like I'm pretty sure I can just use those like now.
And then some random games are just like, oh, scan any amiibo and you get like
something.
Right. Like in Fire Emblem, I could scan like a Link amiibo and get gold, or I could scan a Mario amiibo and get like extra swords or something. Mm-hmm. You know. But the Fire Emblem amiibo, if I scan them in Fire Emblem, I get a specific Fire Emblem item.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So in terms of like longevity, yeah, because now these individual figurines, you know, travel across multiple consoles, multiple generations of consoles too, and I mean, it's weird saying that like Nintendo has more sticking power than like Disney, but I mean in the game market they do. Yeah, in the game market they absolutely do. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, not in general. Like Disney obviously is like one of the biggest companies, and I think the most recognizable characters are going to be from Disney.
I guess it's the difference of like a game company making these. And like a company who doesn't make games,
trying to cash it. It feels like they're trying to cash in on it, right? Yeah. That's what it feels like. I mean, I think that's again why Skylanders, because when it was new, was a completely just like new thing from what is it, Microsoft and Activision Blizzard, right? That's where they were from. I want to say they were. I think
they were definitely Activision.
Yeah, and again they worked with. Did they have a console thing too, or no, or a PC thing? I want to say they probably did, right?
Or
were they just on? Were they only
it was on Windows.
Okay, so they were on Windows, yeah, because it's Microsoft, yeah.
PC.
And then they were also on Wii U, right?
Yeah, 3DS, PS3, Wii U, Wii.
PS3.
Yeah,
Oh shit,
PS4. I mean, 2011
Oh, true.
makes sense.
Yeah, okay, true. So what? I'm assuming they had like a little USB reader, I guess, on PS4 and PS3.
Skylanders had you bought.
Oh, it was like a pad. It was like a pad.
The base.
Yeah,
and then you
that
just
had
put
the reader.
Skylander on the reader.
That had the okay, so that was the reader. I was like, I remember. It took me a second to recall that. Yeah, because I remember.
Because I feel like people tried to get the readers traded in. And we're like, we're not taking readers.
Yeah. I remember seeing a lot of those just like sitting in bins at like the current retro shops we go to now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like with Nintendo being a game company, focus on games. Making toys that interact with said games makes a lot more sense, right? Because they will support them. Well,
at least to an extent.
To an extent, right?
Yeah.
We say will, but like again, within a time frame. Like I'm sure after a certain point they'll probably stop doing these. I mean, but
I figure why though?
Why? Yeah.
Why stop? Because
they're always gonna be making games anyway, and like all they would just have to do is like, okay, write a bit of code to say, oh, if someone has, then on the next Mario Odyssey Galaxy World
Thing.
2, whatever, if you have Silver Mario from the anniversary collection, it's like, oh, this one gives you Metal Mario. You know what I mean? It's like, just as a drop in, drop out. Like this is it. Oh, that's cool. Like an old amiibo that I bought back in 2014, 14 or so, still working on like a game that comes out basically 10 years later would be kind of was wild to me. You know what I mean? But like that's cool that it has that support. And Nintendo also has that very dedicated player base that they'll just eat anything up that they make.
But then that's what makes it like better than regular DLC, because like you said, I can use it 10 years down the line. If I buy like VC for 2K, I'm only using it for that 2K.
Yeah.
It's like,
it makes sense more that I'm going to get more out of my quote unquote investment of buying this amiibo.
I got more bang for my $15.
Exactly. And again, for $15, like some of these.
And you get a cool figure.
And for another thing too is like we talked about this before, where like I remember looking at Ganondorf and like seeing Ike or seeing like Joker, like obviously there's figurines of Joker and like Persona characters, right? But like for considering how small the amiibo is, some of these have insane amount of detail. Like for like 15 to $20 ish. You know what I mean? Like. Sure, it's small, but there's a lot of detail in those figurines. And usually, when you buy like a cheap figure from like just like a Toys R Us or any sort of like toy store, they're usually little shits. You know what I mean? They're really not all that great detail. They're super sloppy looking. But no, because like
the first wave sucked.
First wave was rough. The best out of that earlier waves was like Kirby, because Kirby's simple.
Yeah.
But like. Yeah, I remember like Link's with cross-eyed, right? He had the gold base, right?
The gold stand to keep him upright.
Yeah, but like we look at the newer ones now, like I look at Joker, who was like in a really dynamic pose, and they gave him to hold him up to support him. They had like that aura thing. I think it was on Nier's feet. I want to say, right?
Yeah, he has the flames where he's activating his persona.
The Arsene summon, essentially, right? Yeah, like he's right there actually behind all the Shovel. That's another thing too. Nintendo will also do third-party stuff. Like Shovel Knight was one of the earlier amiibos.
Yeah.
And like Shovel Knight debuted on 3DS. You know what I mean? So it's like...
Well, that's why people thought also he was going to...
It'd be in Smash eventually. Yeah. I mean, he was, but not technically.
Assist trophy.
Yeah. But that's the thing too. Again, like games that like you wouldn't think you would get figurines for their characters for, you could be pleasantly surprised, but that maybe if they get big enough or supported long enough by Nintendo that they could get a figurine. Like I remember, wasn't there a rumor of like a Shantae one coming out soon?
That's what people thought.
People always say it every time there's like a another Shantae re-release or whatever on consoles or whatever. But it'd be cool. I would love to see like a Shantae figure. You know what I mean? Especially for done by like in the Amiibo sense. It'd be really cool.
Well, I liked in Mario Maker that any Amiibo you scanned that was kind of like your icon.
Yeah, it was just something, a nice little.
And then it was like, look at Mega Man now running around.
Yeah,
my Mario level.
Yeah,
kind of deal.
And and like sure, it's funny because I think amiibos suffer the opposite thing of pops, in my opinion. Again, I'm not very deep into the whole pops thing. You could actually answer this for me because you're still in it, right? The bigger amiibos tend to sell versus the bigger pops things. Like, like the double pops things, like a lot of people don't really buy them because they're like, I don't want to buy this for my collection because it's too much space. It doesn't have the same dimensions as having two individual pop boxes next to each other. Versus the big amiibos were like the big Yoshi, the Guardian, the Wolf Link amiibo. Like, those don't sit very often because those are usually very, very limited run and rare.
I think it depended on its market. Because there are some 6-inch pops that sell. The 12-inch or bigger ones normally don't because they're too cumbersome.
They're just massive.
Yeah,
so no one really wants those things basically.
Right, except the super collectors,
the hardcores. Yeah.
But the Guardian amiibo sold like fairly well, and you don't see those
around now at all, basically.
Well, especially with the resurgence of Zelda, and that goes back to what you were saying about how things get popular again. They released a lot of the Link 30th anniversary amiibos.
Yes.
Because they give you special items in Tears of the Kingdom.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing. Like again, like if we look at the most recent releases, right? Pyra and Mithra, like
who would have thought you would have got a Sephiroth figure made by Nintendo?
Kazuya.
Yeah.
Minecraft Steve.
And the last Smash Brothers amiibo you're gonna get is Sora.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
Just insane. Oh man, I still remember the day they announced Sora, and I was in my room. I just got home from work, and I think the thing came out at like 9 a.m. or whatever it was. So I got home. And I was like, oh yeah, this is a Smash Direct. I was like, let's see who this final character is. And I was kind of like apathetic towards it. And I was like, yeah, it's fine. Let's just see who this is. We can finally close this. Oh my god! Just like absolutely losing my shit.
I think because all the quote unquote rules, like it was like
got broken.
It's never gonna be Sora.
Yeah, like there's no way. There's too much red tape. There's too much like copyright and bullshit going. And there still is a lot. There's no Disney imagery within any of the stages. His character, But
there's no Donald or Goofy.
No Donald or Goofy in the stained glass.
Music,
no the music. Like, very, very restrictive on the music. But like, wow, they actually got him into the game. So like, it's wild. And you think that like the last Smash amiibo I'm gonna get is gonna be a Kingdom Hearts character. Like it's massive. That's insane.
They're gonna be sick and make like 5 Sora. What is there? 5 different Sora costumes?
There's a lot. There's like
because there's 7. the from 1, 2, 3, so and then the black and white, right?
Black and white. His forms are in there too, like the Valor and all those other ones.
They're gonna be sick and make like 8 Sora.
I will actually. I'm gonna throw up.
It's gonna be like the 8-pack.
And that's another thing too. The colorways. Like there's 2 Robs. Right, there's the Famicom
because
Rob,
the Famicom,
and then the collection.
The Japanese one is different.
And then player 2s. That's another thing too, right? I mean, they don't play any different. They just do the exact same thing.
There needed to be more player 2s. I don't,
Yeah.
Bayonetta's.
She technically could get a player 3. Theoretically, can get a player 3.
Cloud had a player 2, and Corrin had a player
2. Got all of those. That was a rough hunt for the last couple of months for me.
But then it just left the door open. It's like, well, Villager has a different form as a player.
Yes,
it has the male female.
Yeah.
Like Wii Fit has the male female.
Well, they made Steve and Alex different characters, so that's another thing too.
But they didn't make an Enderman amiibo or
that would be kind of sick, actually.
Zombie.
I don't even play Minecraft, and I would probably still buy those anyway. But like,
okay, I guess the question is, if they make a new Smash Brothers, they would probably make new amiibo, right? And then it would start the cycle over.
They reproduce some of the old ones. I think absolutely, like the main characters, right? Original 8s. And then
I feel like they wouldn't re-release amiibos. Like there's only gonna be one Smash Mario. Like they would.
Okay.
Right, because they didn't do a different Smash Mario for this one.
True. Yeah.
I think any new character would get an amiibo. They wouldn't remake old ones. I mean, I think people would buy them if they did a new Mario.
They absolutely would. Yeah, they just do like a repackage. You mean they do another repackage or another reprint?
Yeah, and then new characters would be released. But...
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure,
I guess the question is, are we gonna get another Smash Brothers ever?
Yeah, maybe like 10 years, something. I don't know.
Did you see that thing though? Sakurai said, "Oh, I don't." He's like, "I would be down to do another Smash
Yeah,
Brothers."
even though he said this is the last one.
What a maniac!
Absolute madman. Literally working himself to death, like to the brink of death, and he's like, "Let's do another one. Why not?"
I think the problem is he couldn't sit back and watch Smash Brothers be made without him.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. That's just like his baby, basically, right?
Right.
Yeah, I get it. It's insane.
I mean, you were watching wrestling. That's why Vince McMahon can't stay at a WWE.
Yeah, he can't. He has to stick his nose back into it.
Right. He's like,
Oh, actually, I reeling it back a little bit and kind of, pulling the camera back a little bit here. Do you remember like scanner games? I don't know if we touched. We've been talking for like an hour. It's been changed at this point. But like, do you remember scanner games?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I remember there was this is very 2000s.
Okay.
Like it was like I remember commercials for of cool kids going to like stores and scanning barcodes on like the shelf to unlock characters in like in like some sort of game thing or whatever, right? Do you remember that thing at all?
Well, like Pokemon has the mystery codes.
Yes, the mystery codes, and like I know like some other games have
or like if
QRs and like that have like Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic the Gathering does something
right,
like
or
that.
if you brought like your DS to GameStop, you could get like a Pokemon. They had a lot of those events going on.
But the scanner games is like again like even Amiibo cards, because Amiibo cards technically do the same thing technically, but like they
did the Animal Crossing Amiibo cards, and you can unlock the character in your town.
Yes, but there's also a weird subsect of the Nintendo cards where they had AR. Do those fall into the same category?
Well, they had the AR cards that came with the DS.
Yes, they came with the console, and they had a couple more that I think got like sold. I think as well, like as like collectibles, right, for a short run.
There wasn't a lot of those.
No,
I know. Like there was the e-reader for the GBA.
Yes,
you could either do games on, or they added
lost levels essentially.
Yeah, levels to like Super Mario Brothers 3 and stuff like that.
Yeah, so like, do those fall into the same category, or those like completely separate? Because again, if you're talking about like the PlayStation had the thing where they like are. Like,
I guess
I mentioned like a console that was its own separate console, but you would scan in these little barcode things, and it would show up on screen, and you would battle monsters that way. Again, it's very 2000s. It's like I remember like it's very like
I guess it's like an early form or a precursor.
Yeah, because the one I remember the scanners one I think it was literally called like scanners, like with a Z, and like the one with like the kids going to the grocery store. I think essentially it created a monster. Using the numbers of the barcodes. Yeah, you remember that? You know about that? Very. It was like I saw it on YouTube, and I was like, "This unlocked like a very like locked away memory," and
locked away for a reason, probably.
Yeah, because it was from what I remember begging for the game, like because I was a kid and impressionable, and I just wanted. It looks really cool, and then I heard it was actually. I looked up now as an adult, like a couple of years ago, I probably maybe like 2018, 2019, I was like, I remember this game. I remember this thing, and I looked at it and I was like, oh, this is really bad. Got it. Okay, good thing I didn't get my parents to waste their hard-earned money on this shitty game. But yeah, like again, as I said before, like games that use cards or barcodes. Yeah, again, we mentioned before, like like the Pokemon has the thing, Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh does that as well too. Technically, I think. I
think a lot of TCG games now they come with like a QR code that you could scan into like the computer
to get a free pack from the game as well too. Yeah, because I know Magic does that for sure,
and I know Pokemon does that.
Okay, so there we go. But again, like all AR functionalities over that. Do you think that counts into the same like Toys to Life thing, or is that like just that's a weird another subculture subsection of like
I think the specific Amiibo cards do because
that's the point of them.
There's multiple functionalities to those cards.
So if you use the Villager Amiibo cards now, what would they do?
So I don't know if you can use them in like say with Zelda and it gives you items. Like I knew the cards worked with the newest Animal Crossing, and then they worked with what was it, Amiibo Festival or Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival?
Yeah, I remember that one.
And it was to like unlock different villagers and stuff like that.
Okay, so they still technically have functionality even now.
Right.
Okay.
And I know, like, when New Horizons came out, everyone wanted the old Animal
I
Crossing
do
Amiibo
remember
cards
that.
because they were like, oh shit, like,
Yeah,
I want this villager.
I do remember that being like an uptick in terms of like the Amiibo stuff or the Amiibo cards specifically, because they were kind of like on the edge of being like obscure at this point, right? They were like no one even really knew about them at that point.
I mean, just the furries, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, we'll leave that in. Furries don't get mad at us. But like,
Nah, there's some people out there that are, want those specific Amiibo
yeah,
cards.
for nefarious reasons. So like, in regards to like how the Toys to Life phase went again, because again, like 2011 to 2017, I want to say was like the biggest of it. Because again, at that point, the Disney Infinity was still alive. Again, I think there's multiple versions of it, right? Disney Infinity, Disney Infinity Marble, and then a 3.0, which I think was like a reboot. Because that involved Star Wars.
Yeah.
So that had like that was its run basically, and then Playmation was still there for like the year or two, and then Skylanders was still there, dying towards the end of it, towards the end of that run, obviously, right? But then around that 2015, 2016 run is where a lot of these like died, right? Like Legos was 2015, 2017, Disney Playmation 2015, 2016, Disney Infinity 2013, 2016, and Skylanders 2011 to 2016. So a lot of these like kind of like fizzled out towards the end of the 2010s, like or mid to late 2010s. But Amiibos started in the early 2010, 2014, and is still running today. So like again, if I was to say the strongest, again 2011 to like 2017, because again Skylanders came in, blew up, and then took over everything, and then again the 2016, 2017 for some reason is like the hard year where a lot of these things started dying out. I'm not gonna hard connected to this, but I think around that 2017 mark is around when Amiibos had taken over at that point, right? I mean, they were very, very big. That's when we were all hunting. We were starting getting into that like second wave, right? At that point, third wave maybe at that point.
And I think Amiibos also endured. It's because Nintendo merchandise, supports them, and Nintendo merchandise usually holds its value. So
at least the good stuff,
right?
I mean?
So people who are buying them are collecting them. But they could also resell them. They're like, oh, I could hold this, and
but usually Disney stuff also holds their value relatively well, doesn't it?
I mean, Disney mass produces their stuff. Nintendo is known for not mass producing their items for whatever, for nefarious
holding
reasons.
off their own shit. Yeah, fucking assholes. But yeah, like that was definitely.
But we were
height.
out there.
Yeah, we were out there, just gobbling it up and throwing our money at them. You fucking bastards.
I guess another funny story, when the King DDD Amiibo came out, asking for that over the phone was a chore.
Yeah, I remember that being like, who? King DDD. DEDEDE. He's a penguin with a hammer. I'm like, and I'm getting upset, but I sound like a madman obviously to this person who's
the poor 80-year-old Target worker's like, what is this crazy
what are you talking about? Yeah, it's like us getting called about Battletoads every day at fucking GameStop. It's like they're just like, what are these people fucking talking about, these Amiibos? What is this?
I'm looking for Bowser Junior.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Why was that pause? Sorry, it was instinctual. I had to do it. But yeah, like again, like that phase is again. I can't like connect it fully to it, but I think I want to say like at that point, because there was.
When did the console generation change?
2013, 2014. I want to say like PlayStation 4 was out and Xbox. And for Nintendo, well, specifically for Nintendo, 2017. That was a Switch. But again, doesn't really matter for the most part because there was that connection between 3DS all the way up till now. They still support them.
Yeah.
So Nintendo's doesn't really matter. The issue is the other ones, the Disney one and Skylanders, because those were again on PS3 up to PS4. And on PC. Well, PC is obviously like the evergreen kind of.
So I feel like with the Lego ones, because there has been so many Lego games, like there
was also an oversaturation of Lego games, to be fair, for a little while, right? I felt like people because they're very similar, right? They're very samey.
Yeah. But
they're still fun. But it's just like, oh, I can skip this one.
I guess though, like you know, you can make your own Lego Dimensions game, but I feel like if they wanted it to be all interconnected, you could take your Batman and then put him in the Star Wars game.
Yeah,
and that would have given it more functionality. They would have been more sought after.
Yeah, but
because it's like, oh shit, I want to put Batman against.
Yeah, but obviously there's going to be licensing issues
of course,
with all that stuff, so that's not going to happen.
And I think that's Nintendo. Oh, they own all their shit. So yeah, it's like,
well, for the most part, yeah, like you know what I mean. But like they,
well, you know, Sega Horror's out Sonic and Ryu's in every game, so it's like, oh, they don't care.
Yeah, but even then, that's still pretty big to get Ryu and Ken for the Amiibos, for that matter. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you know, again, like getting Sephiroth, getting Kazuya. You know what I mean? Like, it's wild seeing like non-Nintendo characters in a Nintendo Amiibo form. Joker, like that's another easy example, right? Hero, technically, right? Not technically a Nintendo character.
Yeah, because he's Square.
Quest. Yeah, Square. Yeah, there he goes. Yeah, that's also wild too. He's more Square.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just like because that they are in very specifically good terms, surprisingly good terms, I guess, for a lot of these companies, because they'll. I think it's because a lot of the companies also don't see Nintendo as a true competitor. They're kind of like doing their own thing all the time. But and again, a lot of the other characters that they own are just there, so that's why they can just do whatever they want with these figures and make them last and support them as long as they want to.
I think also companies now are realizing that crossovers aren't like a bad thing.
No, that
it's Smash Brothers does bring a certain hype to a character that nothing else will bring to it.
Yeah.
It's just like, there's a specific genre of YouTubers now that it's Smash reaction videos.
Yeah,
that's a specific thing now.
Yeah. Having that very dedicated fan base, player base, energized every time you drop something is massive. That's probably another major reason for why they get the continuous support that they do.
Yeah, like I wouldn't have played Persona without him being in Smash Brothers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was I didn't know who the character was. I was suggested, you'd probably like this game, go play it. And I played it specifically because I'm like, this trailer looked cool. Go play this game. And I'm like, okay, I love this game.
That's actually kind of wild now that I think about it then. Yeah, I mean, for me, again, like Shovel Knight. I love Shovel Knight. And I'm like, I mean, there's figures for him, obviously. They're merch. I bought a plushie and a shirt. But I was like, it's a cool little figurine. You know what I mean? And also the other characters, like all the other knights, King Knight, Spectre Knight, Plague Knight, like where else am I going to get a figure of this quality of these characters?
They really put the full amiibo backing behind Shovel Knight.
Because they had the full support because they were like, it's a really well done, polished retro styled game that debuted on their console. You know what I mean? Like that's massive for them.
Did Shovel Knight have a Mii outfit in Smash Brothers?
I don't think so. Which would have been cool, but I don't think they would have done it because of like, if they did it, they would just take the assist trophy model and just put it onto there, and it maybe too similar, I guess. Because you need to kind of differentiate a little bit,
right?
But yeah, it's just that. We need a Sans amiibo.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like because
I would love to see more.
There were some
indie game amiibos.
Yeah, there were some Mii costumes that were like, oh, imagine if they did Sans, or like you said before, Shantae, or Doom Guy.
That'd be sick, actually. I mean, the port
or Fallout, the Pip Boy.
Yeah, to be fair, the Doom port is really popular, surprisingly, on Switch. So it's like, not so it didn't sell a lot, but I know the people who did buy it said it's very, very good. You know what I mean? They did a very good job of like making it run well on the Switch, basically. So it'd be kind of cool if they did like a Doom Guy, it looks like the little figure that he finds in the game. It'd be kind of cool.
The Banjo amiibo.
Oh, that's massive. Yeah, that's true.
He doesn't seem weird to me because he debuted on N64, but it's still like
you realize he's kind of like a relic that's kind of lost to time because of copyright and like shared IP issues, basically.
Yeah, and he's a Microsoft guy, basically.
Yeah, technically now he's Microsoft because of Rare, the Rare acquisition. Yeah, I'm trying to think like what else is in currently in this. Yeah, because again, like, and listeners, I know we're focusing mostly on Amiibo here, but to be fair, that's the one that still exists. You know what I mean? Out of the ones that have like started in the early 2010s. Again, along with Beyblade, but we're not in the Beyblade thing. Sorry, Beybladers, but like again, like the other ones died off, and like almost a lot of these died off at a hard 2016, 2017. Like I'm looking at this list, and a lot of them are like have 3 to 4 year runs, maybe even 2 year runs, and they die like a year or two later, and that's it. 2016. But this one again, like they get the support, they run it across multiple consoles. Nintendo again, for the most part, owns their characters.
And let's be honest, Smash Brothers is like a much bigger game than any of these other games.
Yeah, like it's true. Again, Skylanders was
Skylanders had its time in the sun.
Absolutely did. There was a point where I couldn't escape it. And I remember like my nieces and nephews were always talking about this. I'm like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about, but sure, if you want it, I'll get it. Disney Infinity had like a pretty big surge in the beginning because again they owned LucasArts and Marvel at the time. Like they are, if not like, was it recently acquired at the time in 2013 or so?
Yeah, fairly recently.
Yeah, fairly recently still. So that was mad. I get why that was so big, but like yeah, it's like Nintendo's the ones like that still exist to this day and still gets proper support. That's why we're focusing on it for the most part. Oh, Cloud, that's another one. Easy. We just talked about Sephiroth, but like yeah, Cloud, like the fact that there's a Cloud figure, 2 of them. You know what I mean? Made by Nintendo for their game.
Do you have a favorite amiibo?
Favorite amiibo? I mean, Ike was really good for me because it's a good looking figure. Ganondorf is like surprisingly intricate. Like he's surprising. Like he ends up being kind of front and center in terms of like my open figurines. I still have a closed one. Ganondorf and Joker. I want to say those two are probably like 2 of my favorites. Just like
Joker's
how
is
well
really
detailed
nice.
they are, and also Steve.
Steve.
Just it's as funny as it's not a meme, but like it's funny because like a lot of the simpler amiibos look really good. Like Kirby looks really good. Jigglypuff looks really good. It's when they were still kind of trying to. I mean, like obviously now it's different because they clearly have like
they found a niche.
They found a niche and they found their like sweet spot in terms of like quality to like to cost ratio, I guess, of figurine. But before it was like, if I wanted to find a good figurine, it spent a lot of time with me like looking at every individual packaging. But I could always trust finding a Kirby, finding a Jigglypuff. Finding a Mario, surprisingly, it was pretty easy to find a good one. You know what I mean? No issues in terms of printing and all that other stuff, or the paint on them. But now, looking at
the famous Samus? She has the 2 arm cannons.
2 arm cannons,
and
there's also a Peach with no legs.
Yeah,
that's like the really rare misprints essentially because they had no idea what they were doing. Because in the beginning they were struggling in the beginning of this whole thing. Because like, I think Peach is like she's kind of like side saddled, I guess, right? She's kind of standing that way, but then you realize under the like you realize that there's no legs under there. It's like what the fuck happened?
Because everyone was looking under there.
Yeah, weirdos, exactly. For me in terms of like my favorite ones again, like Ganondorf, Ike, Joker.
You saw they're making a new
Steve.
Ganondorf for Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, right? They're doing was it Thirsty Ganondorf or Wet Ganondorf? Everyone's calling him now.
Sure.
It was weird how thirsty everyone was for the new Ganondorf. It was weird. What about you? Your favorite amiibos? Actually, one more. The Pixel Mario. I know it's not very popular one, but I think it's the 25th anniversary one. Yeah. It's the OG, but they made him 3D. It's such a sick.
Yeah, and he's going down the pipe.
Yeah,
the pipe
is his base. It's so sick. I love that one. Just a nice little tribute to the Mario, and like again a nice little quality bump. It's really good on that one.
I agree. I love Joker, just because I like the flame base and his pose and everything.
Yeah, very dynamic looking.
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job on him, and his is like a lot more detailed than a lot of other ones. And it's not their property, so that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that they dumped all that work into it too. Because like Sephiroth is just Sephiroth looks good, but he's just a pose.
Yeah,
right? Kazuya, he's in a fighting stance. That's really basically it, right? But yeah, the Joker one's just like so dynamic looking. I mean, the two ones that just came out, at least, and I'm dating this episode now. The Pyramithra amiibos. Like they're again very cool, very dynamic looking.
Right, like they have good poses.
Captures their personalities, because again, it kind of shows like they are, they're very specific characters in their series as well too.
I like the Villager a lot because that was one of my first.
Yeah, that's fair. And again, same thing. Simpler design, makes it for easier to find good quality versions.
Right,
of
like he's very cartoony looking.
Yeah, and so like
they
and so that
captured
means
it very well.
they're very well done. Yeah,
And I love the 25th anniversary Majora's Mask Link, where he's holding the Goron mask to his face.
Oh, right there. Oh, yeah. I got that one too. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's something too for again some more like history between you and me, because Buffa and I do the video game hunts, and unfortunately because I'm a nocturnal guy, sometimes Buffa you used to go just like, oh, I'm on, like, I'd finished my my work early, I'm gonna go to hit up one of the shops, and you found, was it like a person just sold their entire like Zelda amiibo collection basically one day.
They had all the champions and all the special links
and the Zelda too at that. Was it Link riding Epona, right? The Link with the ancient arrow. The Majora's Mask Link. Ocarina Link.
Skyward Sword Link.
Yeah.
Twilight Princess Link.
All of them. This massive like collection. And because I was like half asleep when you messaged me because I saw it work that night. I remember I was like I think I remember the message was like, "Hey Lakan, check this out." Like you added me in the chat, and I like looked at it, and I'm like, "What the fuck? Oh shit!" And I was like, "Can you get pricing for these?" And you started just sending off like a list of, because I'm assuming you were asking the
right.
They weren't even priced yet.
Probably just asking the clerk
because they weren't even priced yet. I think right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know, Buffa, just fucking buy them. And I just went back to sleep. And then I was like, next time we hung out, you dropped off like a fuck ton.
Yeah, I'm like, $200, please.
And I was like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, you're like, yeah, you had me buy them. Because I was like, oh shit, oh fuck, yeah, but I got your money, sorry. Well, like, yeah, again, I appreciate it because like it's such a, they're so cool. Like they're very well done. They're very well made. Unfortunately, though, I think Naboru was the only one who was sold already in that stack. Yeah, so I ended up luckily I found one in box still. At,
it's probably some weirdo, or the guy kept it because he's a weirdo.
That one's in a jar.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, listeners. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for those who know. I'm so sorry.
You seem to attract that kind of clientele here.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, again, again, like, as much as like I try not to be in the same like just buy and just consume everything, like there is something about these that like makes me want to buy them because they are again they're not just a figure, right? They're something that actually interacts with the game, and for the most part I do mess with a lot of them. Like I've used the Mario ones. I've trained Mario's my main in Smash. So is Ike technically in Ganondorf. And so like those ones I actually mess with those ones, and then of course when I started playing Odyssey, Mario Kart, Breath of the Wild, I'm like, yeah, tap them immediately, just get them in there, whatever I've got, just start tapping things.
And I guess just going back to the popularity of these figures specifically, they do Amiibo tournaments specifically, or somebody entered an Amiibo in a Smash Brothers tournament and it beat the people.
Yeah, like if not the tops, but a good chunk of like players there. I remember that. I remember that one being like a big thing back when that was when Smash 4 came out, right? I think that was what it was.
It was a big meme.
Yeah, it was a meme, but it was funny. It was also funny watching like I remember certain content creators even would make. That's another thing too. That's another whole rabbit hole down this whole conversation. Was like of like all the YouTube channels who made everything from Toys to Life stuff. There was certain people who just did only Disney stuff. Only people who did Skylanders stuff. There was so much of it you couldn't get away from it. And of course Amiibo stuff too. You know what I mean? There's a lot of it, and I think it's something too. Again, at a certain point, there's just so much of it, and eventually I think people just get overloaded. And then just too much for them to keep track of and keep worrying about release scheduling and all that stuff. Like luckily not for us for Smash stuff, they're spread out enough for the most part, and we're like not worried too much, right?
And like we said, it's over now.
The overhype is gone.
Yeah.
So like the people who are buying stuff now, for the most part, are people who just want these figurines now. There's not as many of the scalper reseller. Well,
these Pyro and Mythrons were a little weird.
I guess waifus. Yeah, that's fair. I think that would make sense. So I think that's why like
Sephiroth is very popular though.
Palutena and Rosalina are expensive resales because of that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Waifus. But again, like that's just my view on it. I think that like the Nintendo is just gonna last for a little while longer, at least it's gonna have a pretty decent run. I wouldn't be surprised if they go to the next generation as well. But,
yeah, I mean, if they do a Switch 2, or whatever they're gonna do, I don't see why they wouldn't have Amiibo
keep the
functionality.
NFC functionality. Yeah, every other console is doing NFC functionality now too. They're not using it. Nintendo's the only one who's actually using it in some fashion, essentially at this point. But do you have a different like view on like why do you think that the craze officially died? Was it just was it just an oversaturation?
I think it was just oversaturation and then limited functionality
through generations, right?
Right, through generations and through like Nintendo ones you could use in multiple games. This you had to buy a specific game for,
or buy it on PC.
Yeah,
and that way at least it'll last a little longer, right?
Right.
Because from my understanding, I think like when
but I mean, most kids who are getting it have a console.
Yeah,
like, but Skylanders are targeted towards like children, so they're gonna have like a PlayStation or a Wii or whatever.
That's also another thing I was wondering now. Did they transfer from PS3 to PS4? Because I was never in it, so I really wouldn't know.
You could use the figure, but you would have to buy a new different game.
A different game and a new base, right?
Unless
the base was just a...
No, I think the base you could use...
Multiple console?
Unless, I think they all use the USB.
Okay.
I think, though, if you bought, the PS3 game, I don't know if the PS3 game worked on the PS4, so you'd probably have to buy a new game.
So that means that's the thing, too, then if that's the case, you would have to buy... I mean, for Nintendo, you're buying multiple games, but for the one game, you have to buy it multiple times essentially, just to maintain functionality.
Right.
So there's a lot of support going on there too. I'm assuming that whoever was developing it, again, Activision, Blizzard, Microsoft, they were spending a lot of money to make sure that those games stayed functioning on every console, whatever they could anyway. I guess, right?
Well, Activision are bastards anyway.
Yeah, they're all fuck them, fuck them.
And your Call of Duties.
Yeah, I'm over Activision. But yeah, and I think just I think a couple of other ones too, like the ones that came later. I think they just Starlink, right? That I just want to touch on this one real quick because this one was a weird one in terms of who was actually developing this one. It was Ubisoft, right? Where Ubisoft is known for being also a shitty company, but nickel and diming their players and all this other stuff too. But they had a weird first step into Toys to Life thing where the game didn't require the toys to be played either, right? But they were kind of just they had ships, wings, pilots, and they could be they were stackable almost in terms of how they functionality were wise. It was kind of cool, yeah. But it's just at this point it's you're so late.
Yeah.
It's Starlink came out in 2018, 2019.
It was over.
And you're all the ones that died the year before that. You're not coming into this one. It's just bad timing on their part. I think they were just overzealous. And they just oh, we finally got our shit together. We're gonna try to get it together. No, it's done. It's already falling apart.
I mean, if people like the game, I think it could have lasted on its own,
but from my understanding, also Starlink wasn't really that good of a game,
right? So I mean, I think that's the real issue.
Yeah, exactly. Because once again, Ubisoft did
because kids will buy ships.
Yeah, that being said, to play with. That being said, though, I would like to buy the Nintendo version because they had a crossover with Star Fox. So I would have liked to actually grab Fox and the R-Wing. I think that's the only. That's the only two figures that they had. That would have been cool to get, but it's just weird. I think it was very clearly an overhype, an oversaturation, slow decline, and now I think we're at this weird point where Nintendo's the only ones who's really doing it at a big scale. I mean, again, I'm not gonna downplay Beyblade. Beyblade's big, it is, but not here.
I mean, I'd personally like to see more Toys to Life figures because, like I said, it is basically just DLC. So instead of me buying a skin for a game for $20,
I'll buy a figure for $20.
I'll buy a figure for $20 and still get the skin.
Yeah.
So it's I'm the consumer's winning both ways.
Yeah.
As opposed
to instead of just buying something digital that you're never going to be able to use again.
Right.
If the game goes offline.
So it's I appreciate Toys to Life, and I do think they bring a cool element.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, there's a reason why I'm collecting them now, even past the kind of hype of them and all, and I'm still keeping them in boxes, not just because I want to keep them in a collection, but it's I want to preserve them. You know what I mean? And
And the box designs are cool.
They are really nice. I like especially as of late they've been doing a lot of like kind of like cover art almost design. Like the new Tears of the Kingdom Link is such a cool looking like case for it along with the cool figure.
I love what people do with the Smash amiibos when they keep them in box. They line them up like the character select screen on like a wall
like
or something.
Screen, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
It's cool. I just don't want to put a peg wall.
Yeah, nobody has that kind of, not everyone has that kind of space.
Yeah, it's hard to do. And that's actually the one annoying thing actually I could mention about me aside from just being a collectible. But with amiibos, the boxes are slanted. So you can't properly stack them. They want to fall over basically. So and that's happened multiple times for some of my boxes already. It's kind of annoying. But again, it's a cool like again from Buffa's point, it's a cool figure. It's functionality to it. It's DLC that you're essentially paying for, but getting something permanent out of it as well too. It's not just bits, in a digital game. So it'd be cool. Yeah. It'd be cool if more stuff would do it, but do it properly. And if I say properly, I guess more along the lines of how Nintendo's supporting Amiibos.
But I would buy like a Ratchet and Clank figure if it gave me something in the game because I'm like, oh, I like Ratchet and Clank. Oh, I like this game.
Yeah.
Oh, I could use like a DLC for it.
If they make another Metal Gear and they make a Snake Amiibo, either Snake.
I mean, there is a Snake Amiibo, but I know what you mean.
But a PlayStation or an Xbox Snake figurine that gives you active camo.
Yeah.
Before you actually finish the game.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like maybe
or it gives you a special handgun
something.
Or something.
Like, something or like a skin in game. You know what I mean? Like because I remember like during 4 and 3 they worried about camo percentages. You know what I mean? Something like that or a funny hat or a tuxedo.
Or like I'd buy like Siege figurines. If they gave me like the black ice skin for the gun or something like that,
yeah. But no, they can't do that. They got to make people pay for the packs for the black ice,
right?
Because they made Siege figurines, but like they just didn't have anything at all with them. They were just it's a figure. That's kind of like that's the thing. It ends right there. You know what I mean? That's the thing that ends with the non-functioning figurines. They're just there. And that's kind of again the whole point of like the whole Toys to Life thing. There's an integration between. If you're gonna buy a toy, you might as well buy something that does more than just being a toy, right? It makes sense for it. So, but I guess that's really it for me on my end. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up here? Because again, I know we talked again a lot in this episode about mostly Amiibo, but we talked about the history of this a little bit and see where we felt the turning point was in terms of our history, like GameStop watching some of these games dying before our eyes.
Yeah, and seeing all the maniacs out there.
Yeah, that was intense. It's a weird time. It's a weird time. But yeah, anything else you want to touch upon here?
No, I think I'm out of stories. For this.
For at least for this topic, right?
Yeah.
We can talk all night, honestly, but yeah, in regards to this one, the other thing we're gonna wrap it up here, guys. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Just to,
if you guys have any cool Amiibo stories out there, stealing from little kids or pushing old ladies out of the way, I'd love to
or
hear.
yelling at random employees and being a dick about it.
Or if you found King DDD.
Yeah. Please, send them into the email, to the Twitter, X, whatever the hell it is now, the comments, whatever, guys. We very much appreciate it. And again, this was the more conversational episode with Buffa. I've done it with Jeff. I've done it with John, where we kind of had one where we kind of shot the shit a little bit more and had a topic we kind of like loosely talked about, and just so you guys can get a little bit more of like the personality of our friends and our co-hosts, right? Because they're only here for 3 episodes, at least for now, at a block, right? But we want you guys to hear different opinions and different views on how we approach gaming and our different things that we're involved in. And, we appreciate that you guys have been listening and really tuning in for those episodes that are more kind of fun for us, that are kind of more relaxed and not talking about a specific thing, kind of just let us shoot the shit a little bit more about what we actually are really interested in. So we really thank you guys for tuning in and allowing us to do these episodes with our friends. If you guys really like this episode, leave us a review, leave us a comment on whatever and any of the social media platforms and the audio streaming platforms we are currently on. Share us with a friend. We really appreciate it, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.
Peace.
and because of that, he actually knows how to make clothing and do makeup very, very well.
Right.
So
and she's
like
cosplayer,
an aspiring cosplayer. Yeah. So it was like just kind of works out. Again, that one super horny, but like super wholesome.